Okay, let's begin over here. We were looking at Tomesha and Nichnas HaMikdash. We finished over here. It's called halacha in most common systems, and I had mentioned that really the only place where a person could get karet for going to the temple and appropriately crossing to where he shouldn't is in the Azara. You guys need something?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So let's see this. Ve'ezahu tamei shechayav karet al HaMikdash. Which tamei should have karet for entering the Beit HaMikdash? And by the way, it's not all the places. I was emphasizing this last week. There are certain places you can enter the Beit HaMikdash where there is no karet, even if you are not allowed to enter that area. It's only once a person gets into the actual Azara, Machaneh Shechina. Going into, let's say, Har Bayis might be forbidden to some people, but it's not an Issur karet. So who is the type of person who would have karet for such a thing? It says here, Kol shnitma b'tumot min hamet shehanazir megaleach alehem. It has to be the type of tumah that would have to cause a nazir to restart his term of nazirut. What happens if nazir gets tummy? Let's say he was in the room with a corpse. So what happens to this poor nazir? He's got to start all over again, and he has to go and shave his head and let his hair grow again, right? So that means he ruined it. Shekvar nit parish bin zirut. We actually said these halachas. You could find them earlier. Technically speaking, the Rambam wrote that book. At least I don't know if he wrote it first, but it's placed earlier in the whole system. It's in Hafla. We're in Sefer Avodah. So Hafla is what? Which book is that? I forget already. Okay, but it's well before us. Really? So he got to it before us. It's near there in Zerayim. It's the 6th. Okay, fine. We should memorize this. First memorize the Shas, then we can memorize the Rambam. And so he explained this earlier. And or he touched a person or kelim. Kelim, by the way, sometimes is generally speaking, it's actual tools and implements. Sometimes it's even clothing. Correct? As a matter of fact, sometimes kelim often does mean clothing. It means clothing to the exclusion of other kelim. Sometimes it means both. Sometimes it means implements made by man and used for a purpose. Okay. And they have to be contaminated like that. There's a Ravad here. What does the Ravid say? Oshi Gaba Adam. He says, Shibu Shuzeh. I mean, touching a person or kelim. She'ena Nazir Megaleach al Maga Kelim Shenagu B'meit. A Nazir actually doesn't have to ruin his whole term of service and start again and shave off his head if he touched kelim that had touched the mace. Wafilu Shel Cherev. What's the Shel Cherev? There's a rule. It says in Chukas that someone who touches the Chalal Cherev that had killed the mace or touched the mace. Because I'll say anything metal. You have something metal. Usually the metals that Chazal knew about were the 6 metals that they had back then, or alloys thereof. Nowadays we have many more metals, but the point is you have a piece of metal, a table knife, touched the mace. So now that knife is just as tamei, and that contaminates a person like the mace, correct? So he says that even if you had such a case, that Nazir, if you touched the metal that had touched the mace, that Nazir has not ruined his service. And if you touched them, and then he went to the temple, therefore, Rambam's make this equation. If the Nazir has to ruin his service because he got this contamination, then you would be punished if you had that same contamination you went to the temple. So the Ravat says, no, with all due respect, a Nazir could touch certain kelim, and it won't affect him. So, Eno Chayav El Rak, what? Kishanitma Me'amet Atzmo. According to the Ravad, it basically comes out that a person is only chayav kares if he actually got contaminated directly from this corpse, but not from touching kelim or a person that had touched the corpse. Not like the Rambam says. Machlokas, Rambam Ravid. What do we always say when we encounter a major machlokas lahalacha in these circumstances? We wait to see the jury's still out. Hopefully we'll have a Sanhedrin. You need a Sanhedrin in order to run a Beis HaMikdash because they have to answer questions. What they say goes. And whatever they vote, majority, they'll have a debate. They'll vote either like the Rambam or the Ravid, or maybe there'll be a third shita we have not imagined, or maybe that exists that we just are, of which we are ignorant. And then we'll see. I like to say, I was telling someone, tell me if this sounds correct. In the Rambam's, Weltanschauung, the way he looks at things, there's a fine distinction but important distinction between practical halacha and theoretical halacha. Practical halacha is, Orach Chaim business, Choshen Mishpat, Yoredeya, Even Ezer. That's what we do every day, and some other things that have come out to it, even mitzvahs that's Louis Baritz. And then there's a lot of things that we study now, which is just theory. Okay, theory, halacha v'lo l'maisa, right? That's important aspect of the Rambam, right?
And he doesn't split it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're supposed to say, no, there is no such distinction. That's the way people teach things in yeshiva. There's absolutely no distinction. In the Rambam, halacha is halacha, period. These things aren't theoretical according to the Rambam. The rabbi said this. The Rambam's telling you this because according to the Rambam, this is going to happen, which is why throughout the Rambam first describes the chachila what should be. Bisman HaMikdash. This isn't Bisman HaZef. You don't have a mikdash. What are you going to do? He says that that's how we're able to make the Haggadah, by the way, because the Rambam describes how you hold your Seder with Korban Pesach there. And as an afterthought, he mentions what you do if you don't have Korban Pesach, the whole Afikomen thing, etc. So according to the Rambam, this distinction that may exist in some institutions, like there's things that's just theory, nonsense. All of the Torah was given for us to keep. Lishmor v'lasot u'l-kayim, l'lmod u'l-lamed. We have to keep it. We have to do it. Right? L'kayim and lasot. What's the difference between l'kayim and lasot? Okay, but how do you establish a mitzvah and how do you do the mitzvah? I think it is doing it as you do it yourself. And l'kayim is make sure other people do it. Give it to your kids. Teach it, pass it on. L'lmod u'l-lamed. Learning how to do it and also teaching it. We all have a similar obligation. There is no such thing in the Rambam land of halacha, like they say. I think some people, they put out a disclaimer when they write something. This is halacha lo l'maaseh. Please don't. Okay, yes, you should tell someone. Ask your posek. Yeah, but then again, sometimes I don't see poskim don't have shalos and shuvas about these things. There's a Shulchan Aruch Lasid Lavo. There's the Likutei Halachos from the Chafetz Chaim, and now, thank God, people are writing more Sfarim. These are good questions, but according to the Rambam, these are all practical. The Rambam lived to try to keep these things, and that's why he wrote this. This work is a lot more comprehensive than, let's say, a Shulchan Aruch, because he has to touch on all the points and he has to say it right. He has to get it right. And if there's a machlokas with him and the Ravid, so to speak, so we'll have to eventually find a way to decide these things, but we're not going to just say this is just theory. It's not practical. Klalo shel davar.
I've heard a claim that we can't start building the temples until we have a Sanhedrin because there's too many machlokot, and should it be here or should it be here? Is it pointing this way? Is it pointing that way? Is that true? Or do you build it according to Rambam? And then at least you have it. So
here's what I believe. I can't just bring you sources for this. I'll tell you what I'm feeling. Really, it'd be great if there were a Sanhedrin, because there should always be a Sanhedrin. Just like I was telling the guys this week, the Rambam assumes that there should be a Jewish king. They say, a king is only b'diavad. They asked the wrong way. According to the Maimonidean view, a Joshua or a Moses is a king also, and you're always supposed to have leadership. We're not supposed to be left without leadership, and we need a Sanhedrin. They're always supposed to decide the questions. If, for whatever reason, there's no one who's stepping up, and there is no Sanhedrin, then whichever group actually goes and does it, and God has allowed them to succeed, so post facto, that shows that they're the ones who are doing it right. They're the ones who stepped up, just like Avram Avinu. What made Avram Avinu? Everybody else was sitting around. He stepped up. David HaMelech. Why did God chose David HaMelech to be king, right? When did God say, you know what, now you get to be king permanently? No, stay in your family forever. What did he do that he earned that? So this is the Rambam. He says this. When David HaMelech proposed, hey, we should build the temple. And the Navi told him, hey, credit it, you're God's chosen, build a temple. That was what Nasan the Navi said to him. And then he got a message from God saying, you have to tell him, no, we can't do it, but congratulations. I've been waiting hundreds of years for, there's been many Jewish leaders who I call shofatim, who I've commanded. God says, I put them over Am Yisrael. I never actually told them this, and I've been waiting for them to do this. And now you're the one who's decided to do this. So congratulations, you'll be where your son will do it, and you'll have an eternal dynasty because you have your heart in the right place. So too, I believe that if there is a group that they succeed in reestablishing the temple and the temple service, based on, let's say, just the Rambam, they're just going to go with the Rambam. They're going to say, with all due respect to the Ravid, he's great. Maybe the Ravid's, Hadin Imo. But they're going to say, Rambam's our posek. We're going to go with him. Just like Vilna Gaon, the way they say. The Vilna Gaon say, he told Rav Chaim Volozhin, should you wear, it's a good example, I bring this up a lot, should you wear Rabbeinu Tam tefillin? Should you Moshe Rabbeinu tefillin? And Rambam also. What kind of tefillin did the Rambam wear? He was aware of Ravid tefillin. This whole Rabbeinu Tam and Ravid tefillin is a machlokas that predates Rabbeinu Tam and Ravid. It seems. Basically, we do Rashi Rambam tefillin. That's what we do. We don't have to go looking for sveikas and say, you know what? There's another major sheet out there, so we have to worry about shitas. The Rambam has it pretty clear what's supposed to be done. He seemed pretty confident in what he was doing. So we'll just stick with the Rambam. And if we then get a Sanhedrin, they say, you know what? It seems that it should be, in this case, like the Ravid. So let it be like the Ravid. The Sanhedrin changed its mind a few times. There was other discussions for centuries. There were machlokasin that the whole smicha thing. Remember, there's a Mishneh. Smicha was, they did one thing, but there was always in every generation, someone said, you know, the halacha should be the other way around. They're hoping perhaps there would be a Sanhedrin would sit and decide the halacha the other way. So we could still do it even without a Sanhedrin. And when the Sanhedrin sits, they have to reevaluate certain things. So we'll change it around if we have to. But it should not be an impediment or ilikuva from doing this. Let's read this klalo. Klalo shel davar. Kol ha'ta'un biat ma'im min Torah. Whoever has to go to mikvah, according to the Torah, is obliged to this immersion, to do this immersion. Chayav Karet al HaMikdash. So he would be liable to excision if he enters the temple. Va'afilu achar shataval, and even after he does immerse, ad she'ariv shimsho, until he's allowed the stars to come out until night has fallen, the actual Torah kicks in. Aval hamitamei bitumot min hamitim she'eino nazir megalech alehem. A person who gets contaminated from tuma that wouldn't cause the nazir to have to start over his nazirut. She'afal pishu tamei tumat shiva, even though now he's going to be tamei for 7 days. What kind of tuma is that? Let's say what tuma gives him tuma for 7 days? Like a zav tuma, for example. Okay, hareza patur al biat mikdash. So he would be patur for going into the temple, and of course going to the temple in certain areas. It says nitma bishara hoda tuma. What are those? Let's say a person just touches a sheretz one day. Okay. So now we go to, yes, mikvah will remove it. It's very easy tuma to remove, but he has to at least go to mikvah. Okay. So who has to go to mikvah midrabanan? People who have certain rabbinically commanded tumot. Okay. So they wouldn't have, of course, they don't have any punishment for doing this. The Ravad says Devar of Sosrim Zed Zeh, because he previously just said Ravid doesn't hold of what the Rambam's saying here. The Ravid has totally different standards. Okay. Let's see the 15th halacha. I'm going to scroll down over here. What happens over here? Person who touches kalim that touched a person who touched a dead person. Wow, how many? What is that? That would make him a shlishi sometimes, right? He touched the kalim that touched the person who touched the mace. But the problem is the person who touched the mace himself is an avatuma, right? The Rambam never uses that later rabbinic term avi avota tuma. Because normally a person who touches the avatuma, what is he? He's a rishon, right? Yet everybody who touches an actual corpse becomes themselves an av. So this adam is an av. So the kalim would be a sheni, and this person himself would be a shlishi. If I'm not mistaken, right? Does the note say something there? I'll have your addition there. What does he say?
Isn't it? Met kli adam, and then the person. And that's the next case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, the point is that these people can contaminate truma. There's a very high level that. What? Here, please take this cup. Okay. The point is, these people have a form of tuma. When we're dealing with non-holy foods, let's say hulin, the tuma wears off eventually. There's no like 3rd degree tuma that you contaminate just a regular hulin food. But when you deal with kudshim and truma, there's many more levels. Like they say in the Mishnayos, he's considered, let's say, a shlishi, and he's posel. That means whatever he touches will still be contaminated and ruined, but in itself, that's the last. It won't contaminate anything else. So we have this case: a person who touched kalim that touched a person that touched a mace, or he touched a person that touched kalim that touched a dead person. Even though he's technically a rishon with regards to truma, that means it touches the truma, he'll disqualify it. Of course, he could contaminate sacrificial meat. He's still exempt for going to the temple. He has a very low grade tuma. Okay, secondary. Shadvarim elu halacha b'pi kabbalah. Also, this is what they got. B'pi kabbalah. It means a tradition this way. It's not said in the Torah that he'd be punished on karet for this. V'aval bishu patur makino to makat mardut. And even though he is patur from any biblical punishment, we would still, if we knew that this is his case, we would punish him midrabanan. Okay, good. There's some other things. No, we're gonna not yet. I made some notes from things that we should be aware of. Other shitas. Hamachnis sheretz v'chayotze bo HaMikdash. Imagine the chutzpah. Maybe he did it b'shogeg. Maybe it was in his pocket or something. He didn't know it was in his. He was bringing a basket of bikurim to the kohen, and there's a sheretz in there. Some, a lizard crawled in there and died. Let's say. Okay, so what happens? Machnis sheretz v'chayotze bo HaMikdash. O shechnis adam tamei LaMikdash. How do you bring in a tamei person? Now he helped him walk. Okay. Hareze chayav karet shareti me mikdash Hashem. So he has a Issur karet on his hands, assuming he did it on purpose. By the way, you can only get karet if you do things knowingly. He's doing Issur karet b'shogeg, so there's no karet for that. It's a shkaga. So there's there. Aval zorek kelim tmeim lamikdash. Let's say he throws it in. Normally on Shabbos, if I were walking holding a kli in Rosh Hashanah, or I held something. Oh, there's an illustration there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, look at that. Thank you, Makbili. So what level did they say this guy is on? What does he say? Does he say a sheni, a shlishi, halachli?
Was next into an Adam into Kli.
Yeah.
And he touched it.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like he's a Rishon.
He's still a Rishon, okay. Okay, so he's a Rishon, okay. But that's not directly. Rishon itself, Rishon Latuma means he got contaminated by something else. He's already not the Avatuma. Okay. Now, here's an interesting thing. When we have Hilchot Shabbos, if you're walking in Rosh Hashanah carrying something, or you take an object, this cup, and you walk right out the door from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, so you have violated Shabbos. That's Hotzah, right? What if you throw something out the door? You're sitting in your living room, and you take your football, and you throw it to your friend who's standing outside in Rosh Hashanah, and you throw it a good 20 feet. Oh, you guys don't throw American footballs. You kick your soccer ball. You kick your soccer ball out the door, and your friend catches it. You kicked it from a resting position, and your friend caught it. So you did Hotzah also. No nafkamina if you threw it. Kicking it into the air and him catching is like a form of zrika, right? Or you use the slingshot to throw it. That's all the same with regards to Shabbos. But here the Rambam saying it's differently. No, you brought something to the Mikdash by hand. You have an Issur. Aval zori kelim t'meir Mikdash. Afilu hayu kelim shenagu b'meis. Kelim that themselves are certainly an avatuma. An avatuma kli. You threw it into the temple. You threw it over the courtyard of the Azara, the wall. Patur bin karet. Aval chayav malkut. Okay, he's exempt from karet, but he's still to be lashed. Shnemar v'im lo yechabes. It's talking about someone with contaminated clothing. Clothing is a kli. If he doesn't decontaminate, in this case, it doesn't mean launder the clothing. It means put the clothing in the mikvah. Okay. For saying that's him personally, that means he has to go to mikvah to remove the tumah, so he will be punished with karet. Al kibus bagim will karabayim. But for bringing in the clothing, normally on Shabbos you're carrying something on your body. That's carried. But for bringing something that you shouldn't bring into the temple by throwing it or wearing it, apparently you're wearing clothing. Lo karabayim. That's just a lashes punishment. Now this is subject to dispute. You guys don't have the Ravid. So I'll read the Ravid. You have to understand what the Ravid is doing. Thank God we have the teacher's edition that makes it easier for us. Okay, what's the Rambam implying here? Rambam is basically saying, there's a different standard. You can bring, if you brought a sheretz into the temple by hand, you are liable to karet. You did it. You brought a person who's tamei, you're liable to karet. And then he says you somehow threw the contaminated thing in. It's the sheretz or the object that had touched the maze. You throw it into the temple, or you walk your clothing into the temple because your clothing needs to be decontaminated. That's a lower level Issur. It's lo karabayim. Read what the Ravid says. That's what the pasuk says. For the fact that he had to decontaminate his clothing, he's not to be punished with karet if he walked it into the temple. Was that you don't walk in holding a jacket, you wear the jacket. So if I was holding a cup that's contaminated, why am I anush karet for doing that? It's basically think about Shabbos, even though these are not Hilchot Shabbos. On Shabbos, I'm liable for carrying something into Rosh Hashanah if it's on my person, my backpack, or I can carry it in my hand. So too, if a kli, I walk in a kli that I'm wearing, my shirt that's contaminated, I walk into the temple. Oh, that's just an Issur Malkut. So too, if I'm holding the cup, I walk into the temple. It should just be an Issur Malkut. That's the Rabbi's kasha. Al Kain Ani Omer, Masha Amar Shmuel b'Masechet Eruvin, Hamachnis Tamei Sheretz l'Mikdash Chayav, Malkut Kamar. This is a quote from Shmuel. A person who brings Tamei Sheretz into the Mikdash is Chayav, not Chayav Kares, it's Chayav Malkus. The Rambam reads it Chayav Kares. I think it should be Chayav Malkus. Umasha Amar B'Sov, Yere Eli She'en Aloke El Al B'Gadim She'en Avatuma. Rambam says he should be lashed for bringing these kalim, these begadim that are avatuma. V'alo Tamei Sheretz eno avatuma v'chayav. A Tamei Sheretz is not an avatuma. He's a rishon. The Sheretz itself the avatuma, and he's to be chayav. So if the var tzarich l'daktek acharav. So this is not so clear. Arrive at diek mikan sheladas Rambam im ichnis kelim tmeim chayav karet. Rambam says rightfully, the Rambam seems to be saying that if you bring in kelim tmeim, this cup, you're chayav kares for doing that. One would be that. V'yisigal divrei Rambam lalu udasa kesef Mishneh. Gamudas Rambam machnis pater mikares v'chayav malchus. Some say no, I'm reading the Rambam wrong. It's a good kasha on the Rambam. So I want to know. This is, I guess, who's in charge of punishing the person, giving him the lashes? The Beis Din. So that answers your question. If we had a question like this, so will we lash him or not? We say, oh, now it's Issur Kares, or do we want to lash him, etc.? Does he deserving a lashing? By the way, you could lash a person who gets Kares. It saves him from the Kares. Maybe the Beis Din would do that. But this type of thing you need a Sanhedrin for, at least a Sanhedrin that does corporal punishment. Okay. We yet to see. Any questions about this? You guys have the better charts there. I'm surprised. How come I was using? Wait a second. You guys are using a new edition of Sefer Avoda, the big edition, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use this one, the small one, my pocket one. So I don't recall seeing this chart when I looked at it.
The chart is actually in Sefer Torah.
No, I have Sefer Torah. Okay, so he referenced it until you go to Sefer Torah for that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I didn't see it. Okay. These are, I think, earlier printings. Rabbi Makbili has been tinkering with these printings a lot. There's especially in regards to the Midos thing, which, by the way, this is a good break for a second. The more recent Rabbanim, Rabbi Bar-Hayim included, Rabbi Rabinovich said, how much is a revius for drinking your cup? So they measure things. They found that the Rambam basically says, we're going to see when you do kamitza, you grab the flour like this. It says you have at least 2 kazesim in here. It basically shows that Rambam holds of the small zayis. I mean, how much flour can you fit in there or here? How much flour can you get there? It says at least 2 zaysim worth. It shows that the Rambam doesn't hold of the modern day, kazesim. Now, how do they measure this? Rav Chaim Noah says that revius is how many ml? 86. Gematria kos, by the way. Turns out 86 the way you calculate it. Chazon Ish said more. The Rambam scholars like Rabbi Rabinovich, and you could see in the back they point this one out. Revius is actually 74, 75, 76 ml. That's what Rabbi Bar-Hayim told people also. It's interesting. Someone showed me. You look into the Rambam's Perish Mishnayos in Adios in that first paragraph. I think the esteemed Rav over there was the one who showed this to me just this week. I was saying, let's calculate this. The Rambam has in his Perish Mishnayos something very interesting. And we were doing the calculations ourselves because we were talking about this. It says, oh wait, no. Yeah, it's right here. This is right at the beginning of Adios. The Rambam says that he did these measurements himself. And the Rambam transferred these measurements into mass. He used basically what was the dram. They mentioned this. And he says here that the revius he found, a revius of wine is almost 26 dram, about 26 drams, if I'm pronouncing it right. Now, how much was a dram back then? In 12th century Egypt, the dram was a unit of currency. It was a certain amount of silver. Some say it's about 2.9 grams. Rav Avad Yosef used the 3 grams flat. Rav Kapach in the footnote says it's 3 1/3 grams. Wait a minute. If he says, so wine comes out to 26 drams, that means 86 2/3 of a gram about. That's wine. Wine, it turns out, if you have proper red wine, I checked this. I thought I had a Havamina. Wine has some things dissolved in it. So any water-based substance with anything dissolved in it is denser than water. Water's density is 1 gram per cc or 1 gram per ml. Now, Should grape juice is denser than water, correct? Because grape juice has all the things dissolved in the water, but it doesn't increase its volume. So grape juice, it turns out, is denser than water significantly. But wine is not. Why? Because the bacteria turn the germs into alcohol, basically reduce it. And alcohol itself, aside from being dissolved in the water, is lighter than water. Alcohol is 80% or something, 90%, depends on the situation. Alcohol is less dense than water. And therefore, for example, we looked this up for Merlot wine. Proper, high-quality red Merlot wine has a density less than that of water, which explains why the Rambam here said a revius of wine was 26 grams, a revius of water was 27, a difference of a whole dram. And that makes sense because the wine is lighter than the water. But hold on, the Rambam said a revius is 27 grams of water. How much is that? Well, if we use, let's say, Rav Kapach's measurement, so 3 times 27, 3.3 and a third times 27 comes out to about 90 ml. 90 grams of water. 90 grams of water is 90 ml. So the Rambam seems to be saying here, if we use Rav Kapach's measurement, that a revius is 90 ml. That's significantly more than Rabbi Rabinovic's figure. So maybe Rav Kapach is mistaken. Maybe it's not 3 and a third. Let's say it's just 3 grams. What is 3 times 27? Well, 81. So 81 grams of water in our, if you're assuming clean water, is 81 ml of water. That's still more than this. Okay. So it's not Rav Chaim. No, it's less than that. It's still missing 5 ml, but still 5 ml more than Rabbi Rabinovic's figure. Yeah.
You take it as 2.9 instead of 3.
So 2.9 reduces it even more. It reduces it by 1/30th. No, but it's still not the exact figure we got that we've been using, the 76 ml. Okay. So it brings it down to a 30th. A 30th of 90 is a what? For the wine, 30th of 90 is 3, so it's 87, and a 30th of 81 would be what? I'm forgetting my math. Would be less than 2 point something, whatever it is, still significant. Okay, so we have to look out for this. This is saying that just food for thought. I don't think there's anybody there who's actually using a revius that's 76 ml, like has a cup that's so small. Usually when we have these revius cups, like the kind I like to use at home, it is about 90 ml. You know, how much is this? I haven't measured this, but we use. I don't think anybody's that desperate that they have to use the barest minimum cc. But this is a tzarechiyun. How much did the dram actually weigh? What was the Rambam talking about? It's interesting. Like I said, the Rambam decided to do this. He also mentions how much flour adds up to this because that's what the Rambam did. He was puk v'chazi everything. He went down and saw. And it was a big surprise realizing that certain wine is less dense than water. However, sweet white wine is of course more dense than water. Okay, like I think a Moscato wine is denser. Okay, like a percentage denser than water. Okay, back to the halachot. Rambam says Yira'eli she'ena lokeh ela al begadim she'hen avatuma. This whole case, the pasuk says, walking with his contaminated clothes. It's only the clothes themselves are an avatuma. Kagon begadim shenaga bahen zeh hatamei lemeit. A person who's actually tamei mate is going to touch them, so these will become avatuma. Shein avtuma kemoshet ber. These things would also stay in avatuma. So they touch an avodatuma, but they themselves stay in avatuma. Fine. Aval beged shehu rishon. If you have a beged that's a rishon latuma, it itself touched the avatuma. Somehow that conferred. Not every contact, by the way, of any two kalim, just because this kalim is an avatuma, doesn't mean that this kli will become a rishon. There's rules about that we haven't seen yet. If it's just the rishon, he wouldn't even get lashes for such a thing. He would get makat mardut. And Rashi says, and the Ravid says, chayav kishehikdis kli shenit mamisheretz who rishon latuma. They say if you have a kli that or a beged that touched a sheretz is an avatuma. This kli or this beged, whatever it is, this halachic kli is now a rishon. According to the Rashi and Ravid, you'd still get lashes for this. And there's I guess for the sake of time, we're not going to read this whole Ravid here. It says here, Rafal Pisha patur bi karet malkinoto. That's his bottom line. Even though he's patur from karet, it's still lashing. Yudchet. Wow, amazing stuff. It's kind of scary, actually. You have to watch out. Do any of us ever watch out before going to shul that we might be tamei? No, of course not. There's no rules of Tuman Torah going to shul. But perhaps we should think about these things. You go to shul, so then make sure you're a little bit cleaner. Just not that you should chas v'shalom start practicing. Yeah, you should wash one's hands. You should wash one's hands. The Rambam and the Vilna Gaon hold that the Tilas Yadayim before every tefillah is a chova, and with the bracha, right? So don't be surprised. I think someone caught me saying a bracha on Tilas Yadayim before mincha. It's like, what are you? Hi, my wait, where do you get that from? Like in Litvox, you learn. The Vilna Gaon says, it's Ikra Din. It's like chas v'shalom, you should do different than we do. There's some Sephardim more proud. They don't wash their hands with the bracha before mincha. They do wash their hands. They don't say a bracha for some reason. Okay, to each his own. Just don't start imposing your own beliefs on others. That's the bad thing. A tamei sticks his hands into the mikdash across the line. I don't know why. Lahachis. Okay, so he should be lashed makat mardut, not the actual lashes. Anybody who is tamei with an avatuma, that's rabbinic, sticks his hands in there. He ate contaminated foods. Or drank contaminated beverages. And he went to the temple on purpose. He did it bizadon before going to the mikvah. He'd also be lashed for doing such a thing. He went across the roof. He climbed the roof of one of the buildings that is alongside, let's say, the Azara courtyard. The Beit HaMoked and other ones. He goes across the roof. Why would he be on the roof? Well, let's say he's the workman. He goes he has to patch up the roof, so he's actually there. But he should at least have decontaminated himself. So he climbed the ladder and he crossed over in the line that separates the Azara from the rest of the Chel. So now he went through the Derech Gagot, across the roof. Shneimar Ve'el Mikdash lo tavo. It says about this person who's contaminated, she should not go to the Mikdash. It talks about the woman who just gave birth. Derech Biat chayevet Torah. It's Biat. I guess this is why the Rambam uses this term, by the way. Going in the normal way. Okay? I guess if a person came in on roller skates it says here, Tamesha Mishu Hichnisa Tameh is chayav. It doesn't say the person who was brought in. Remember that? A few halachas ago. It says here, Hamachnis Sheretz O Shichnisa Adam Tameh Mikdash. The Machnis is the one who gets punished. The Tameh person who I guess is kafut. What's kafut? That's a Chazal's term. He's tied up. Okay? He's chas v'shalom, he's in a wheelchair. Okay, so that wheelchair guy who was tamei, it's not his problem. He didn't do derech bia. It's the person who brought him in who gets the obligation, who gets the punishment, gets the liability for this. Zafal pishu patur makidoto makat mardut. But even though he's patur for anything, they also lash him for this. Afil nichnas b'migdala poreach ba'avir. Technical case that they might have had such a thing, but basically they say anything who's being carried in the air. What's called a litter. Apirion Shlomo. What's a litter or an apirion? It means, let's say, a carriage. It's a box, fancy person rides in it. But instead of being pulled along by wheels or a sled or pulled by an animal, it's just carried by 4 men. Okay, the pallbearers. That's basically what it is. So who gets to ride around in one of those things? I don't know. If you were like the queen of something, in Egypt they used to do this. That's how they carry around fancy people. They have I don't know if this is apocryphal or not. You guys are Brits, but they say Ben Franklin was already had quite a few years behind him when they were drawing up the American Constitution after the colonies revolted against His Majesty, chutzpah. They decide they're going to write their own constitution. So they had Ben Franklin come. It was in his hometown, and they basically brought him there in a litter carried by prisoners from for the penitentiary. Okay, fine. What?
Isn't there a concept that a person who's alive carries himself?
Yes.
And so if you're carrying your friend who's also carrying
That's
himself,
talking about Shabbos and all that, but he's adjusting his weight. That's talking about when you're carrying him on your shoulders. If you're carrying a litter, so already it's not, it's divided among 4 people. That's how you carry this whole carriage thing. They're carrying the thing that's meant to carry a person. So that's not the same case. But here we're talking about not the act of carrying itself, but the achnasa. Okay, the person who was being carried, afilu nichnas b'migdal ha'poreach bavir. He's the guy in the litter. Makino to makat mardut. Why? Because that's his derech. Really, he could say, I didn't enter the temple by my feet. I'm being carried by a bunch of men on 4 poles, and I'm in this carriage-like thing. So I shouldn't be punished. So whatever. You're the big shot. You're the one who's directing these 4 prisoners or slaves, whoever, the servants, to carry you around. Makinuto makat mardut. Bein shnichnas bebidal derech kagot. Bein shnichnas bo derech ptachim. Even though he came through, Ben Franklin was brought into the temple. He converted to Judaism and he was brought to the temple. And his litter, they would still say, no, he should be punished because he's getting out of it, a technical way out of this.
That's the
What?
case in the law.
Yeah.
No, that we would see such a.
Okay. I don't know. Kol makom shechayavim al zdono karet. Let me just see, make sure I'm in the same place as they have the computer. Yeah. Wherever you find that a person is punished for karet, for doing this on purpose, entering the temple where he shouldn't go, v'al shigato korban, and therefore, if it was a shogeg, he's not karet, but he has to bring the korban. What kind? Chatat. Im nitzeit sham tumah b'shabbat motzinoto. Let's say they find tumah there, an actual tumah source. So they bring it out. Dead lizard, dead mouse. Okay, so they got to get rid of it. Ushar mikomot kofino of kli adachar Shabbat. On Shabbos, what do? You can't pick it up. It's muktzah. Now it's the shar mikomot. Remember, Chazal didn't decree muktzah and things like that for the temple. Chazal didn't tell the Kohanim, there's Issur Shvus in the temple. They're already being Mechal Shabbos. The act of bringing sacrifices itself, malach on Shabbos. So Chazal didn't institute what the Kohanim are doing. But we're talking about now an area that's sha'ar mikomot. You don't have to get rid of the tumah there because this is not Machane Shchina. So what do? You found a dead mouse within, I don't know, Ezras Nashim. So what you do is, on a regular day, you get rid of it right away. On Shabbos, like you do with other things on Shabbos, put a kli over it. Deal with it after Shabbos. By the way, the Rambam doesn't use the word muktzah like we do. Rambam only uses muktzah on Yontif. He agrees that these halachas exist on Shabbos, just he calls it Issur Tiltul, no handling it. Yeah, look it up in Shabbos. The Rambam says that's how he begins Hilchos Yontif. He says something that's even more severe on Yontif than on Shabbos is muktzah. Muktzah means you ain't going to touch that. You put it aside for whatever reason. What we colloquially call muktzah, Rambam just calls Issur Tiltul, a hammer, and something expensive that you're not going to use it on Shabbos, or mius, all the other categories of what you and I call muktzah. The Rambam just calls Issur Tiltul on Shabbos. Okay, just a technical point. What?
Isn't this Seder?
No, it's dead.
Ah.
Okay, we're talking about. I gave the example I gave was a dead mouse, a dead lizard. So that transmits. That's the avatuma.
Mm-hmm.
They found it there. It's not inconceivable that a lizard will make its way into the temple courtyard. Okay, I mean there's animals walk around here. We have lizards, by the way. Have you seen them? Oh, here they're all over the place. I can't walk past shul without seeing a lizard scurry one way or another. Okay, when they take out this tuma. Ein motzinoto ela b'shutei kli'etz shein makablim tuma. Make sure to have shutei kli'etz means pieces of wood that have not been turned into vessels. They have no capacity. When you hollow them out somehow or turn them into a device like a wooden stender like we have in front of here, or you build them into a table, those are both not shutei kli'etz anymore. Kal v'chomer if you gave it some sort of capacity, it's been hollowed out a little bit into a bowl, it has a concavity to it. If it's still just a plain flat piece of wood, it cannot contract impurity. So you pick it up on that. Use it like a spatula. Don't use a spatula because a spatula, if it was made of wood, would be contaminatable. Okay. What's this? Ostensibly the reason for doing this? You don't want to make another thing tummy in the temple. What do you mean? Let's say I did have a wooden bowl and I could scoop up the mouse in the wooden bowl and just take it out. The wooden bowl will stay out of the temple the rest of the day. I'll put it in the mikveh later or whatever it is. What's the problem with using this wooden bowl to pick up the mouse? Because the wooden bowl becomes tameh. You don't want something else becoming tameh in the temple. It's bad enough that the tumah is actually here. You don't want it to spread its tumah. That's the extent of the severity of this prohibition. Echad tameh shenichnas lemikdash. Hold on one second. Okay, there's not much here, sir. It says Echad tameh shenichnas lemikdash tahor. Let's say you have, I don't know why. Do you guys have it lamikdash or limikdash? Is it a mistake?
No.
Yeah, limikdash. He wrote this list. So I guess Korean has a mistake here. We have to tell him that. Change. They have it with a shava, not a patach. So there should be a dagesh in the mem too. Echad tameh shenichnas lemikdash tahor. Okay.
Here I've got a shiva and a dagash.
And there's a dagesh in the mem.
Yeah.
Obviously, it should be the mikdash, not to a temple. Means, and not only that, here they actually say it in the notes. They put a dagesh in mem, shiva, and then a dagesh. Wow. Okay, we have to proofread these things. I wonder what the Machon Mamre, what do you call it? Vowelized version has. Should be La Mikdash. La Lamed with a patach, Mem with a dagesh, and a chirik. Okay. Echad Tamei shenichnas Mikdash tahor. The Tamei, he came into the Mikdash tahor. Okay, he came into Tahor. O Tahor shenichnas Mikdash sheyesh bo tuma, and he went into the Mikdash where there was tuma hanging out. Okay, he's going to get contaminated there. Kigon she'ah meit tachat oil ba Mikdash. There's a corpse under a halachic ohel somewhere in the temple. Remember, in the temple they had balconies. You know, the women were up on top, so there are places where you could technically get, if chas v'shalom someone died in the temple, right there, so he doesn't spread his tumah. If he's in the Azara, his tumah doesn't spread to anybody else. Okay, unless he's underneath something, and then anybody, other kohanim, etc., they can get it. V'nichnasu tachat ohel, and then this other person who is perfectly tahor gets under the ohel with this mace. Let's say the ohel is made by another person. Someone just died in the temple, and this guy's standing over him like, "Oy, oy, oy, what happened?" So now his hands are there. He's creating like an ohel. Okay, he's pulling out his coat, or he wants to put his coat over this person who just died, cover him up, creates a temporary ohel and contaminates someone else. Aside from himself, he's contaminating because he's right over. Okay, his entering the temple, he's walking around, and his contamination happened at the same time. So he's also chayav korban. Wow. So he should be chayav karet actually. Nichnas mikdash v'nasham echad achar shenichnas. He goes into the temple, and then someone gets contaminated. Now he's moving around. Someone comes over to him and throws a dead lizard or rat at him. Right? That person shouldn't do it. So the second this dead rodent hits him, he'll become tamei. Correct? He's been standing there in the temple for an hour now. He's been watching the service of the Talmid. He's one of the Ma'amados people. He's there. He's supposed to be watching the korban being offered. He's fasting. Even if he became tamei on purpose, he went and picked up this rodent. He should hurry up and he should get out of there as soon as using the shortest route. Okay? Shortest route. What?
It needs to be short in space and also.
So we're going to read it. There's actually things here. I put the note. Read this next line, and you'll understand what the Rambam's saying. He can't delay, like slow down at a certain point, or to say, like, I'm leaving the temple. Remember, what's the minhag? The proper minhag. When you finally leave the temple, you bow down. On your at least get on your knees. There's two ways to bow down. There's the keto way, touch your face to the floor, or pishut yadayim v'raglayim. Both are legitimate. Okay. By the way, you shouldn't do that because even though they were supposed to do that, like who visits the temple nowadays and doesn't do hishtach vayah upon leaving? Okay. Oh, let's say b'derech aruka, or you can't find the long way out, but we're going to find. We haven't said it yet. We're going to say if it's spatial or temporal. What's the question?
But we already have a mission that talks about you have to go in and do a certain circuit.
Yeah, but hold on. That's talking about a tahor. He got contaminated. Got to get out as fast as possible.
It doesn't, even if it goes against traffic.
Yes. V'im shaha oshiatza baruka. If he tarried or he used the long way, afal pi shelo shaha. He went the long way, but he did it as fast as possible. Or he turned around to the Haychal and he bowed down. Remember, you could bow down in the temple courtyards. All of these are standard protocol for when it leaves. Okay, hold on. So we're seeing here that he's going to get to what happens if he walks just really slow. No shaha, no stopping. He just walks, takes baby steps. We're going to get to this halacha. Lo echsir panav, el yishtachava derech yitzitzo klape chutz patur. He never actually turned around. He just managed to bow down because he bowed down in the wrong direction. Patur. Elim kain sha'ak shiur, unless he delayed the shiur. How long is the shiur? A few seconds. The chama shiur shiato. In order to read this verse, vayechru apaim arza ala ritzpa vayishtachavu lodot lashem kitov kilu am chasto. By the way, this isn't the complete pasuk. This is the second half of the pasuk. It says the people heard this, what Shlomo Melech was saying, and then they bowed down. That's really how long you should be on the ground floor. If you're trying to bow properly, you'd have enough time to say this. Okay? Here's the answer to the question. The derech aruka means anything that there exists a shorter way to go. Okay? So aruka means whatever's not the shortest. So there could be many drachim arukot. Yatsa b'ktsara, afal pi shelo ratz el halach akev b'tzad gudal. What's akev b'tzad gudal? It's an expression meaning the ankle's touching the toe, baby steps. Okay, like she's demonstrating here. So he's going to derech kitsara, but he's doing it really slowly. He never tarries, he never stops. He just happened to go really slowly. Afilu kol yom kulo patur. Okay, so it's always spatial. Derech Kitzara is, the answer to your question is not temporal, spatial. He's going the short way. He manages to slow down, but he never really stops. Patur. Yatsa baruka, afal pisha ratz, v'dachachas mo b'kol kocho. He realized if I take the short way, I could go slower, I could run like a slightly longer way, and I'll do it as fast as I can. Kol kocho. V'nimsa shiur zaman shalach bo haruka pachot mishur. So he cut down the time. So the Rambam is very clear. Answer to your question is, it's as I wrote here. Remember your RDT math problems? Do you do that in English? It's distance, not time. Okay, that's the answer to that question. So I'm sorry to wait so long to give you the answer. I had it wrote here, but I just want to read the law. Give me a second. I'll take a drink. It's amazing. Have you ever seen this? I can't stress more than enough, but this isn't relevant for you guys because everybody here is still yet to have children. Saying this happens enough that we should stress this. Let's say you are in the synagogue and you're the one causing interruption, especially during the San Shmon Esrei. So it's this happened to a guy here. We were davening mincha here, middle of Shmon Esrei, a phone is ringing. It's not that disruptive, not one of those rings. It actually sounded nice music that could, if I turned it on before davening, maybe it could actually accompany davening. Good mood music. And we don't know whose it is. Everybody's just trying to daven, but this is like going on forever. And it finally stopped. A few seconds later, it starts again. Suddenly, one of the guys who's davening finally turns around, walks over to his backpack and tries to stop it. I've seen it many times. Or someone brings in the child, disruptive child. So they try to really, they give it their all Mesiras Nefesh and all their kaiches to try to do what? To try to ignore what their child is interrupting, and they're going to get through their Shmon Esrei, right? That's called Chasidut Shtut. Okay? He's being foolish. If you are the interruption, you shouldn't bring your phone into the base matter, especially during davening. Okay? If it's your phone, it's your child that's causing interruption, don't try to be strong. Don't try to, chazak v'nis chazek to try to still focus on your davening. You're interrupting others. You have an obligation to turn around, even though you're in Shmon Esrei, and get out. Okay? That's the halacha. You got to get out and deal with it afterwards. The next time, bring a child who has enough discipline. You should teach your children to go to synagogue. Bring the child who is disciplined enough to sit quietly. Okay? Or whatever it is. But if you're the cause of the interruption, get out. Okay? And do it quickly. What was the question?
Should you be mekatzer your current bracha and then say the Fatima and then leave, or
I think just that's already too much thinking. Okay, you got to get out of there. You're interrupting other people. Whatever you're doing now is on someone else's cheshbon, so you don't have the right to start making these calculations and considerations. You guys stick around long enough, we'll have chilling later. So it was worth it. See, you stick around later until after this. No, okay. The last halacha of this chapter. Yatsa b'ktsara v'alach me'at v'amad v'shaha me'at. He's going out the short way. Halach me'at v'amad v'shaha me'at. So he's walking a little bit. And he stopped, took a break. V'chazar v'alach v'shaha me'at, and then he stopped again. Another break, like they do at the funerals now. They go a little bit and they stop. They say some sukkim and a kaddish and they continue. Ad shenitz taref mikol shiyot kadei ishtachavayah. And enough breaks that it added up to the Shir Hashtachavayah, like we just said. Enough time to read this piece of the pasuk over here that they bowed down on their faces and they praised God. B'mezid they no lokeh. If it's mezid, he should not be lashed. B'shogeg eno mivikram b'pnei davar safek. He broke it up. It's like malachas on Shabbos. He never walked the 4 amos. But then again, once he did walk 4 amos, so it's a chiyuv. What's the thing they say in Shabbos? Let's say the pencil case. If you had a broom, so you lift it up and drop it, lift it up on its head and drop it, right? You ever, yeah. Once again, he deserves to be lashed for rebelling against what the sages said. Let's begin the fourth paragraph, unless we have questions about this. This is something interesting. How do you invalidate the service? Okay. Now we saw that a Kohen can invalidate the service. There are various cases of him being drunk, missing his clothing, etc. Now we're talking about the Tameh who invalidates the service. Tameh Shavad HaMikdash. This is, by the way, only talking about a Kohen. If you're not a Kohen, you can't serve in the temple anyways. Tameh Shavad HaMikdash Chilel Avodato V'Chayav Mitah B'Idei Shemaim Al Avodato. He works in the temple. He is violated. He's invalidated his service, and he's liable to death at the hands of heaven for what he's done. Afa Pishalo Shaha, even though he never had any delay in there. Okay. What does it mean delay here? Does he have to leave here? What does it mean? Because he's a tameh. If the Kohen is tameh, let's say, and he somehow sprints into the temple and he stays busy and never stays still, he will not be obligated or liable to the penalty of just coming in of bia. Why? Because he never actually stopped. It's like that Shabbos case also. He's carrying. Oh, he realized, don't stop, because that would be the hanacha. Remember? So just keep going. You have the akira. Don't let the hanacha happen. Hopefully, maybe Shabbos will end or something like that, and then you won't have the hanacha on your account. So here he walks into the avoda. He just gets to work right away. He's invalidated the service because it's tameh, but he actually hasn't had a chance to sit around or stand and let the what do you call it, the punishment for actual bia kick in. Bia, I mean, is entering the temple in a state of contamination. It says, we nazaru mi kodshei b'nei Yisrael v'lo yichalu et shem kodshi. They should stay away from the kodshim of b'nei Yisrael and not disgrace my holy name or defame my holy name. It says, harezu azara lo aved betumah. This is the prohibition, the warning. Don't serve in a state of contamination. Ulanu omer, and later it says, umetu bo chichaluhu, and they shall die from it if they desecrate it. Here also, they shall die is misa b'dei shamayim. There's no death penalty at the hands of a basin for what Kohanim could potentially do in the temple. Wrong. It's always misa b'dei shamayim. Afkam misa b'dei shamayim. So too here, it's misa b'dei shamayim. V'chol lav shechavin alav mita b'dei shamayim lokin alav. Anytime he does a prohibition for which he deserves misa b'dei shamayim, the basin should still lash him for that. Maybe they'll save him also. So that's a technical rule, but then there's this other rule of what they actually did. You guys remember this halacha? Even though doing this, he'd only get, let's say, a court. The Sanhedrin's only going to give him lashes, at most 39 lashes. They wouldn't bring him to the Beis Din to be tried. Instead, what would they do? Hold on, make sure we're still connected. What would they do? They would bring him out. They would bring him outside, and they themselves would pop his brain. Okay, with tzoa is like they say what they do to a chilazon or some other critter to try to get the stuff to come out. They squeeze it and pop it. It means they would whack him on the head. And they would not protest this. Okay, the Sanhedrin, the Kohanim's Rizimhain, is part of the Zrizus. They enforce the rules very clearly. I wonder, it's a blessing and a curse. We can't go to the Beis HaMikdash and daven the way they want. But then again, if we treated the Beis HaMikdash like the Kotel had been Yanim there, there'd also be groups, let's say like the women of the wall coming, women of the mount, and they would come and try to do things their way. We want to do things our way in the temple, and that's of course a major no-no. So it's sort of good. At least our current state, there's the waqf, God should get rid of them. They should be removed speedily in our days, amen. But at least they're preventing, let's say, Christians from doing Christian worship and also other, God-forsaken religions. They cannot perform their idolatry on the Temple Mount. That's a good thing. And renegade Jews who would seek to do things their way and not God's way are also being stopped. In Beis HaMikdash times, you come to the Beis HaMikdash, you want to worship your own way. There are Kohanim. And just like the Ish Harabayas is going to burn his kinsman's clothes just for neglecting his watch, and they're going to punish a Kohen who serves improperly with basically, they're going to lynch him. So too, you should watch out. This is the way it's supposed to be. Sometimes we need to do this. There's the real law, and then there's the law as it is in practice, and we don't object to this. So they should watch out. So I hope that people get the message that you can't just do things the way you want. You can't say, "Well, I'm tummy, I'll just do it my way." No, there's no such thing. How is this possible? The case I gave. He gets in the temple, he's able to serve, but he never actually is going to be hit with the prohibition or the liability for stopping. Yeah, is he Superman? How does he do this? Ela mita b'dei shamayim bilvad. How does he only get the misa b'dei shamayim punishment? Kigon shenitma ba'azara. Okay, he somehow got contaminated with azara. Dead sherets right there. He touched it. Now he's contaminated, and he's leaving in the right way. He's not stopping. He's going out the short way, like we said. Uvitziato hayat tzinor biado. He has, in this case, the tzinor is not a pipe, but it's like they used to push the pieces of the korbanot onto the fire with these poles. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Pointy poles, like a pitchfork-like thing. He has it, and it's nice and long in his hands. V'fachbo evar al gabei ha'esh b'mizbeach v'kirev sreifato. And on his way out, he's a very skilled guy. He got contaminated. He's walking right past the altar while holding this thing, and he's able to, without stopping, knock a piece of the korban onto the fire so it burns better. So he's able to perform a service without ever stopping. Okay, you have other cases like this in Shas. Someone amazing. Remember, the Kohen Gadol had that whole thing where he brings the incense with his hands and he keeps some in his mouth, and he doesn't get burned. Right. So these Kohanim are they're very agile. Okay. Shekol keruv avodah harei hu kavodah. So here he does an avodah, even the littlest part of the service, knocking this piece of meat onto the fire is like a fire. Remember, how do you prevent it from being bishul akum? What's the trick that the mashgichim use? Adjust the flame, but not even adjust the flame. They used to have us do this. You light the fires, so it's not bishul akum. I remember when I hashkached an event, I had to start in the morning at the shul, and it got good. Rabbi Kron showed up to do the bris later in the afternoon. The guy who was working there was Jewish, but they're so used to letting the mashgiach turn on the fire, they just said, "You turn on all the fires." Yeah, but you're Jewish. You're Israeli. The mashgiach always turns on the fire. Some would just throw a toothpick into the fire, right? That's good enough. That's a Ashkenazi kula. You guys did this? You ever do ashkacha? No? Okay. So you say to prevent, he's nodding. Okay, so you did ashkacha, so you do this. This is another thing. You help the burning go a little bit more. So that was enough. Okay. He was contaminated. He immersed in the mikvah, but it hasn't hit nightfall yet. No har of shemesh. So his service is invalid. And he's also liable to death at the hands of heaven. These contaminated kohanim should not desecrate the name of their God. According to tradition, this is a warning to the Tvul Yom Kohen that he should not serve. Wait a second. We'll read the Ravid after this because there's no Ravid in front of us. So, okay. Shadayin Tamehu. A Tvul Yom is basically, the Rambam said Tvul Yom is technically tahor. In his Perishah Mishnayos, remember we saw this? In Kalim he says a Tvul Yom is technically tahor. Here he says he's technically tameh. He's basically in a limbo. Shnemar uva shemesh v'taher. It says when the sun goes down, v'taher, then he shall be purified. But remember, Rambam says, like Rashi, uva shemesh v'taher. V'taher means, and then the sun goes down. V'taher is the next stage when the stars come out, when all the light is out of the sky. Miklal shadayin lo tahar. But it's also implying that even though the sun went down, he's still not completely pure. Okay. Aval mechusar kippurim shava. Let's say he's a mechusar kippurim. What's a mechusar kippurim? What's the distinction we saw last week? He might not be tameh, but he had a level of tumah which requires of him to now bring a korban to complete the decontamination and to allow him to eat once again of korbanot. So who's a mechusar kapara? A mitzora, a zav. Well, they're no longer mitzora and a zav. Technically speaking, a ger also, a yoledet. A ger is a slightly different thing, but all of them cannot eat, let's say, korban pesach until they bring the korban that they're obligated. So the Mechusar Kippurim went through a lot of purification already. He just has to bring a korban. Even though his service is invalid and he ruined the service, hareza patur. Why? Because technically speaking, he was just missing this hakrava, this act of bringing the korban to finish it. Let me read what the Ravid says on Halacha Dalid. We technically Halacha Hey? Yeah. It says here, Amar Avraham, Kevan shet tvul yom shenichnas mikdash bekaret. Because the tvul yom goes into the, let's say, the inner courtyard, is to be punished with karet. How would you have a tvul yom serving getting the death penalty? He's already liable to karet for entering the temple. So you can't hit him with both chiyuvim. I think this halach only exists if you're dealing with a bama. The Rambam doesn't deal with bama. What's a bama? A bama is a private altar from the era before they built the temple. Actually, it's not even the era before they built the temple. It's the inter-sanctuarial period, as we say, between the destruction of Shiloh and the dedication of the temple in Jerusalem and the first 14 years there in the land of Israel. A total of 71 years in Jewish history, broken up. 14 here, 57 there, according to the Rambam. So, inami shasa beit yada rukal tzinor v'afach be'verud b'chutz. I can only imagine that this happened in two possible cases: that it's a bama, and you have to hold that all these rules apply to a bama also, which is kind of difficult to say, or that he had an extra long tzinor. He's actually turning this piece of the korban on the fire from outside. That's how you could have such a case. Okay. Once again, we'll have to see what the halacha will be when the Beis HaMikdash is built. It says regarding this woman who gave birth, and the Kohen brings her korban, the Kohen will bring the korban, and then she shall be purified. This teaches you a person with Chusar Kippurim like the Yoledet, her purification is only complete once the Kohen completes the sacrificial service on her behalf. And so too, anybody else who is considered a Mechusar Kippurim. So you have here the Ravid basically says he's Chayav Misa. Hareza Patur before here, look over there, I put the note over here, right before you have that hey. Hareza Patur, Ravid says he's Chayav Misa right there. You guys see that? Do you have the little hey? It says Aval Mechusar Kippurim Shavad Alpha Pi Shavudato Pesula B'Chilel Eliezer Patur. Ravid says he's Chayav Misa there. Okay. Rambam says Ravid says in the bottom other Makos Otmasovo L'Rabos Mechusar Kippurim. It says in the Gemara there in Chesed Beis that this Mechusar Kippurim, what Od Tumasovo, he should carry his sin. The Od Bibonot Shel Mitzora Darmino Bizvachim Asay Sheyesh Bo Karetu. It's not say that carries a Issur Karet. His purification, if he doesn't do it, he should be punished with Karet. V'choshekin Biat Kulo. Kal v'chomer, his entire person, if he comes in, he should be Chayav Karet. Okay. And the Tuma Tarasi Lettuce, he says, Miklal De'ad Hashta Tmeahi. See, she was Tamea before until then, so she'd be Chayav Karet, even though she's just Mechusar Kippurim. Ravid disagrees with this. So, yeah, once again, chalk that up. We'll make a running note of all these things, and we'll see this. You guys have the same halacha as I do. I'm up to what's called Vav in this edition, Kohen Shavad. What number do you have? Is it Hey or Vav? Vav, okay. Kohen Shavad. V'achtach nuda shehi hayat tamei. He didn't know about it, he was tamei. Really? So how do they find out afterwards? What happened? What? Someone saw him become, he was unaware, and they wanted to tell him they saw it happen from far away. What they do? A person with binoculars far away sees that the Kohen, about bringing this, pieces of the Ola up to the Mizbeach, stepped on a dead rodent. Okay, so now he's Tameh, right? So what are they going to do? They don't tell him. They're trying to tell him, but maybe they shouldn't tell him. Is it better? Mutav Yishogim Mizida? Maybe he'll listen. Okay. Either way, they're trying to tell him, but he doesn't know. Im he tuma yudua. What is tuma yudua? What do you mean? They just knew about it. Well, someone knew about it. Okay, he didn't know, but someone knew, like you say. Okay, if someone at least knows, someone in the universe knows about it at the time he served. The other case is that he was tamei, but no one knew, and they're only going to find out because somehow they're going to find information after the fact. Okay, like a video or what?
his wife made food.
Yeah. Contaminated it.
And then gave it to him, and then Limafreya realized.
Okay, he ate it. He ate contaminated food, but he didn't know it was contaminated. His wife didn't know, and then his wife found out and came and told him afterwards.
Yeah.
And she didn't know at the time that he was serving. Okay, whatever it is. Kol korbanot sheikriv pisulim. All the korbanot that he brought in this time, if it was a tumah, you do it to someone, not to him. Everything he brought during that time has been disqualified. Sharei avodato kulin. His service was basically chulin. It wasn't holy. V'imhi tumat hatahom. If it's, let's say, a tumat tahom, what does that mean? No one could have known about it. They only found out somehow after the end. They say that there was a grave. He walked over a grave that no one could have known about. Hatzitz meratzeh. The fact that the Kohen Gadol has tzitz, that there's meratzeh. I always want to know, how do you translate this word? I want to find a good translation. Meratzeh. It allows the service to be accepted. Okay, allows its acceptance. The chol korbanot shekriv nirtzu. All the korbanot they brought, even though we contaminated them, they've still been accepted. Yeah. Das of a person. Yeah, if there was a person aware or not, because the tzitz rescues these things. It's a tumas tahom, a tumah that was not yidua, so the tzitz made it qualify. Which is why, if we want to do korbanot lefachot, like tomorrow, we want to do as much as we can. Everybody, the decontamination of tumat mate will take a week at least, if not a few more than that, to get everything prepared. So if you want to start sacrifice service tomorrow, we're going to be doing it betuma. So the tzitz needs to be there. We say this frequently. We need a kohen gadol wearing the tzitz in order for this to work. Even if it became known to him that he was tamei before they threw the blood for the sacrifice, was a rock where it's up. He still throws the blood on the altar. The korban has still been accepted. Shasitz meratzeh al tumata tahom, afal pi shehu mezid. The tzitz allows these sacrifices to be accepted, even though the person offering them knows what he's doing. He knows he's tamei. We mentioned tumata tahom in nizirut. And by the way, this is what allows us to bring the korban pesach today. Why? Only Passover and Kiddush sacrifices are accepted. Okay, I don't know where I wrote this note to myself. I wrote number 2. But where did I wrote number 2? Yes. Okay, over here. See over here. I just said, Kol korbanot sheikriv nirtzu. Others say no, just the korban pesach and the public sacrifices. If it's your own private sacrifice, it doesn't get accepted in this case for tumat tahom. Why do I have to say public sacrifices? I understand that's one category. Korban pesach, isn't that a private sacrifice? Everybody has his own korban pesach, or groups have their own korban pesach. No, because everybody has to bring it at the exact same time. So korban pesach is always its own category in all these halachas. Next halacha. The tzitz allows all these things that are offered to be accepted because it's on Aaron's forehead, or I guess it's whoever's in Aaron's place, and Aaron will carry, so to speak, the iniquity of the holy foods. But it does not, it does not allow the tumah of the things that are eaten to be accepted. Why not? Basically, that's the rule. When we bring stuff to tumah, yes, the korban is perfectly valid, but the pieces that were supposed to be eaten, those get taken out to be burned. Those cannot be accepted. The kohanim don't get a chance to eat. What do we say here? Also, a person who knew about what it was contaminated, it was known to someone, not to the kohen. Remember, we said not to the kohen who served, but at least to someone. So that tzitz doesn't work in that case. Unless it's a tumah dechuya b'tzibur, like public sacrifices. The tzitz allows these to be offered and accepted. And the tzitz also only works when it's actually on the kohen gadol's forehead. So be there entirely and ratzon lahem. The thing I wanted to mention about this, I have to do the korban pesach. Hold on one second. Tumana nechalim. What was it? Well, Where was it? There was something here. Too busy with this. Tuma dechuya b'tzibur. I'm trying to think. There was something relevant that actually came up. There was a case. Oh yeah. Why am I forgetting this? In Ratzal Tumas and Necholin. Lo Tumas Adam Shanitba Betuma Yedua. Okay, nice. Tuma Dechuli Betzibur Shatzitz Maratzal. Tuma Yedua. Okay. This is rather Uzmancha Rual Mitzvah. We mentioned that. Where was this? This is something that comes up often. What was it? It was a question that came up this week. Nuts. I really forgot. I should have written this down. I feel like I'm having one of those episodes, like a senior moment. What we were discussing this week? You guys weren't here on Tuesday. The question that was actually quite relevant that came up. Okay, we'll God willing, we'll come back to me. Kol korban shein kavua lozman. If you have a korban that doesn't have a set time, so it cannot override Shabbos or the Tumah. Can't do it betuma. Sometimes you do it betuma, sometimes you don't. Sheim lo yikrav hayom. Lo yikrav hayom. Yikrav l'machar. If it's the type of korban that you could delay, let's say your korban toda, your chatas, so you could wait. You could bring it tomorrow. There's time. The whole korban shekavua lozban. If it is a korban that has a set time, like most korbanot tzibur, bein korban tzibur, bein korban yachid, docher Shabbat. What korban yachid has a set time? Pesach. Okay. Docher Shabbat, but docher tumah. So that pushes aside Shabbos. You do it even on Shabbos, or you push aside the tumah. Notice the Rambam doesn't say hutra b'tzibur. There's an afkamina. Tumah hutra b'tzibur. It would apparently be many more. There may be more exceptions because the chuya Rambam's about to say is that it's not a blanket permission. He's about to explain. Okay. Also, this tumah, we're not talking about the tumah that you can remove easily by going to a mikvah. It's only tumas mace. Okay. So we saw this. By the way, this is once again why we can do korban pesach today, because all these things are not a problem. If you have tumah, dechuya b'tzibur, we just forget about the whole tumas mace issue, and you could actually eat korban pesach. It's the only korban that you could actually eat the tumah. Why? Because it was meant to be brought to be eaten. Kol korbanot tzibur kavuas banam. He just made this distinction. Does it a kavuas ban or not? Every korban tzibur has a time to be brought. They say an exception. No. What about the par helam davar? That's a korban tzibur, but that doesn't have a set time. That's maybe it doesn't even have to ever be brought. The fichach kulan duchina Shabbat. So all korbanot tzibur also override Shabbos because that's their time. That tumata mate and also tumas mace. You have to bring the musaf on Shabbos, so it overrides the tumah. The whole korban mehen shekarei b'tumah eno ne'achal. And whenever you bring a korban b'tumah, it cannot be eaten. On Rosh Chodesh, they have to bring a whole slew of korbanot. How many? Well, seven lambs, 2 bulls, 1 ram, and a he-goat for a sin offering, right? That's the musaf of Rosh Chodesh. That's a he-goat of a sin offering. Who's supposed to be eating that sin offering? The Kohanim. In this case, they can't do it. Okay, so they're not going to do it. It says here, they burn on Mizbeach the pieces that are supposed to be burnt, the forbidden fat, the limbs, the blood. The meat that's meant to be eaten is burned. As like any other kodshim, forbidden sacrificial meat that has become contaminated. So how does this push aside the tumah? How do we decide if there's actually a case of tumah dechuya b'tzibur? What do we do? I was mentioning this on the day after Tisha B'av because it became relevant when we tried to go in Har Bayis the day after Tisha B'av. What happened? You guys hear about the story? You've been to Har Bayis. When you first cross through the metal detectors, then they make you wait at the waiting area, right? And the police band gives you the whole speech about what you can and can't do, Baruch Hashem, and that they're there for our protection, right? They're there for our protection. Then they make sure that for whatever reason, then they play with us a little bit. They delay us, They make sure they have a group of the right size, and then they give them a police escort, and then they bring you up there. When we went on the day after Tisha B'Av, there was mamish no one there. It's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. I forget the exact hour, maybe around 8 o'clock. Beyond the metal detectors, there's no one there. It was just me and the kids. No policeman saying, don't go up there. So we just walked right past there, right up to the entrance of Har Bayis, where the riot police were, somewhere there waiting. And finally, there was that one cop who's always there. And he spots me. He's like, what do you think you're doing? Like, I'm going up to the base of Mikdash. What do you mean? It's like, don't you know you have to wait? But no, but they told me to go up there. The guys at the metal detector said, have a good day. And I just continued on my way. It's like, yeah, but you're not allowed without an escort. I said, oh, I'm not allowed? I thought you're there for my protection. And then no one else is here, so, go in here. It's like, he asked me, do you think you could just do this? Like, what do you do? I said, yeah, I do think. I'm a Jew. I'm the balabus here. You ain't supposed to be here. Okay, look, I could tell this to them. You have to be very straightforward with these policemen. You are not supposed to be here. And a lot of even the Jews here have not decontaminated themselves. Yes, they do have policemen and other security forces. They have their own mikvah to use. Did you know that? There's a Har Bayis mikvah. The Kotel Plaza mikvah is limited to certain people, like Hassanim, and they put out a thing here. Yeah. There's a special mikvah for these policemen, so some of them do. But this guy, he ain't supposed to be there. I'm the balabas. I told him this. My daughter was pulling my sleeve, telling me, Abba, you should be talking to him like this. I said, no, you should know that there are rules, and what's going on here, perhaps maybe you'll have a conscience and realize what he's doing is wrong. And yeah, so I would have, yeah, wasn't Jewish, but whatever. So they let us on, and then we were speaking. Then other people joined us eventually. Didn't let us go there, and we put this up on YouTube. I was speaking this in Hebrew. I told them this, said this loud enough for the policemen to hear. There is no such thing as not allowing Jews onto Har Bayis. When the Beis HaMikdash stood, the Levim were there checking people, telling them, make sure if you go into Har Bayis, you've been to mikveh today. But they were not checking people to see if they're Tamei Meis or not. Why? Because of the next halach we're going to see. Had they know if that day they're going to do the Korbanos B'tumah, they do a count. They count either the Kohanim who are available. If the majority of the Kohanim, we're going to see what that means, are Tamei, they say, you know what? Today, red flag, whatever sign, all the Korbanos are brought B'tumah. Or they say, all the people who have come to attend are Tamei Meis. How are they counting the people? Like Rav Kapach says, how do they get onto Har Bayis if they're Tamei Meis? The answer is, Tamei Meis can go onto Har Bayis and go up to a certain point. And if the crowds of Jews who show up to that day's service before sunrise, you have hundreds of Jews who are coming to attend the service, the Levim have to do a check. Chevre, we know everybody went to mikveh because you can't get onto Har Bayis without going to mikveh. How many of you are Tamei Meis and how many are not? And if the majority are Tamei Meis, then you know what they say? You know what? Today's korbanos are done B'tumah. We're going to do the Talmud B'tumah. That's what we're about to read in the Rambam. So there's no such thing. I was saying this out loud. There were a few police there who were there with us. So I was saying with these kids. And I thought this was quite a crowd pleaser. I was telling them, I said this very loud so the police would hear this. There is no such thing as telling Yidden that they're not allowed on Har Bayis. There is no such thing. That's what these halachas teach us. We'll read this. Higiyas mano shel tor korban. The time comes for that korban. Let's say just the Talmud in the morning. Vayu rov kahal shemakrivino to tmeim lameit. The kahal are tmeim lameit. Those are Jews, regular Jews, men and women included. O shayu kahal torim. The regular Jews are pure. Vayo kohanim akrivim tmeim meit. The kohanim are the ones who are majority tmeim. O shayu elavel torim. The kohanim are pure. The people are pure. Vayu klei sharei tmeim b'meit. It's the sacrificial vessels. Those are all tmeim. How is it that you don't have any kosher kalim, cups to catch the blood, kosher slaughter knives? How is it that all the kalim of the Beis HaMikdash are contaminated that day? The answer is because at the end of the day, they put all the kalim in the room of the kalim. It's a machsan, basically. If a kohen died in that room overnight, all those kalim have been contaminated. There's no kosher kalim in the Beis HaMikdash. No pure kalim. So they have to all be contaminated, and to decontaminate a kli, it's like, with paraduma water, takes 7 days. Now you're going to have 7 straight days of korbanos b'tumah. There's 3 things that get contaminated. This teaches us regular Jews show up to the Beis HaMikdash for the services, and if they are the majority of Tamei Meis, we're going to go ahead with it. What do? Harei zeh yeyaseh b'tumah. So they should do it b'tumah. let's go ahead. The sacrificial service. V'yitasku bo atmim v'aturim kechad v'yikansu kulan la'azara. The Tameim and the Torim work together. The Kohanim, a Jew's Tamei Mace is going to slaughter this animal. Okay, because we're working betuma. V'yikansu kulan la'azara. They can all go into the azara. Why is it such a chiddush? The Rambam's waiting at the end of this parak here because Rambam said a parak ago, a Tamei Mace who goes into the azara is Chayiv Kares. And a Kohen who serves the betuma, does this betuma, it's Chayiv Bisa b'nei Shamayim. But if everybody, whoever the majority are, just the majority of Kohanim, majority of Kalim, or the majority of the people are Tamei Mace, all bets are off. So this is another rejoinder to those people who were telling us, you can't go to the Har Bayis, in Tamei Mace, it's a Chayiv Kares. In our situation, if tomorrow we would still be Tamei Mace, and we want to do Korban Tamid, not only would it not matter, would none of us be getting kares to the death penalty, we'd be doing a mitzvah. And it would be perfectly valid. Okay? Afro lepume, as they say. Dust to their mouths of those who are trying to tell us not to. They have to learn halachas. Okay? The Rambam didn't make this up. God willing, that brings us to the end for today, only because we got to go to sleep. So we pray for the restoration of the temple. Okay. Yeah. Be well, everybody. Have a good Shabbos.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.